I pressed the wrong button. Anyway, what's happening, Ice Cubes? I wanted to. I made this video before, but I needed to kind of settle in a little bit better. Jimothy, you need to get off the screen. Jimothy, get off the screen. Thank you. Um, fuck. This always happens. Everything dumps out of my brain whenever I turn on the camera. So, obviously, you've noticed the new couch. I have a gaming couch for the first time in 10 years. I have not had a gaming couch in like 10 years. I used to play games out in the other room on the couch on my 360. That was back when I was in high school. That was before I started the channel, and that was before a whole lot of other crap happened. Um, but yeah, it's really nice. This is like some comforter padding. It's mostly for my posture because otherwise I'm gonna be leaning way back here the whole time, and it's not good for the whole face cam thing. I pulled my monitors forward because otherwise, like, it was all the way back here, and it was weird. So I pulled my monitors forward a little bit. Excuse you. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better. But yeah, I've got everything figured out now. I'm so glad to be done with that stupid fucking gaming chair. It's gone. I threw it out already. It's never coming back. Um, I'm so excited to. I've been gaming in this chair for a while. Chair. It's a couch. I've been gaming in this couch for a while. I love it. I love this thing. This thing is great. My internet's dying. Everything's broken. Nothing works. That's as per usual. But I kind of wanted to talk about some stuff I've been wanting to get into. I might splice some of the original video into this too, because there was some good bits of that video, specifically at the end, because I was talking about my books and stuff, and I don't want to retread over that. I've been doing good though. Like I feel better. Like these past few weeks have been really good for me. I mean, I was sick, kind of sick this last weekend. I didn't feel great, but I've been feeling good otherwise. I've been going outside a lot more. Like I have color on my skin again. I need to go outside again. Uh, I don't look like a milk bottle as much as I used to. Uh, and it's just been a good time. I've been hanging out with my family a lot more. I've been hanging out with Nick a lot more, my best friend. I've been still trying to get jobs cuz I need to get back to that, but more importantly, I've been focusing on my books because my books are hyper important. Uh I don't know. This year has been very good to me. This year has been a great year for me. I've done nothing but win this year, and that sounds kind of egotistical to say, but it's true. Like I feel like I've accomplished a lot this year, and I I'm getting close to my 9 year mark on YouTube. I'm getting close to finishing my books. I'm well over halfway at this point. And I know exactly what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my books. This has always been something that I've known. I feel like people well, people. There are some people, there are a couple people who didn't really believe me when they said that I had a plan. My plan for these books have been kind of cemented for a very long time. I've known exactly what I've wanted to do with this particular version of Mystic Hills for a very long time. You can see it over here. I have it open right now. Uh, and I have all of my documents open right now. But I've known what I wanted to do with this version of Mystic Hills, because you have to understand, this is the third draft that I've had for this particular story ever. Like, it's not the third time. Like, this is not even the third iteration of Mystic Hills I've ever worked on. It's the originals, Origins. Then there's the 3 drafts, because the third. Ow! Fucking fan. I accidentally kicked my fan. I'm stupid. But then there's the 3 drafts. So this is the 5th iteration of Mystic Hills that I've ever worked on. Which is insane to think about. It's come a long way from where it originally started. Not only from, like, where it started for me personally, because you have to understand, Mystic Hills has been part of my adult life, almost the entirety of my adult life. I got involved with it in 2017, up until today. And it's evolved in umpteen million different ways into the project that I have today. And it's the most comprehensive, the most concrete version of Mystic Hills that I've ever worked on. It's the most substantial, I should say. And it's incredibly important to me. I've had this conversation before about where Mystic Hills Origins, since I brought up Mystic Hills Origins. Mystic Hills Origins was a mistake. It was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, because it was, I'm going to take my headphones off. It was during a time where I was very much coping with a lot of problems and a lot of loss. I've talked about 2020. 2020 was the worst year of my life. Blah, blah, blah. I've said this a bunch of times already. But one of the most important things that I learned from 2020 was from Mystic Hills Origins. And it was a mistake. I didn't go through it enough. It was a mistake because it was me overstepping the bounds of what I was capable of. It was me having such complete and utter confidence in my ability that I lost sight of my limitations, which, ego. Like, it was complete egotistical trip for me, is what it was. And the reason why I very much avoid that mindset and avoid where Mystic Hills Origins took me all the time, I never would find myself in that position again, where I'm stepping so far over my bounds and so far over my limitations, being so deluded in the idea that I could accomplish something beyond my ability. Uh, and it was one of those moments that taught me a very valuable lesson. It taught me a very valuable lesson about myself. And one of the reasons why I don't put myself in those positions of authority anymore, or ever. I avoid them like the plague. Like, I don't want to be in charge of anything. I don't want to be trusted with that level of authority or power. I don't want to even call it power because it's a whole different thing. Um, and the reason why I don't like I share snippets of my books all the time to get feedback because feedback is important. And feedback is important because it is the most valuable currency you will ever have as a writer. There will never be a moment where your writing is perfect, but there's always moments of your writing that you can improve on. And those are things that I find very important. There are people out there who will tell you never revise, never adhere to what other people say about your writing, this, that, or the other. Never take criticism. That's all bullshit. Feedback is different from criticism. And criticism is broken up into two different categories, but feedback is different from criticism because feedback is more of from a reader's experience rather than from a critical experience, from a critical perspective. When you get feedback from someone who's reading it for the first time, who's experiencing it for the first time, that's different because that tells you more about how your story flows, how your characters feel, how your settings feel, how your descriptions work, and if your reader gets confused, if your reader isn't confused, if there are things that are, if there's more context for things later, you explain that. There's tons of different factors to feedback that make it important, and it also gives the writer, aka dumbass, right here, signs on what he needs to improve on. And so, like, my number one feedback giver is Nick, my best friend. He's absolutely the least bullshitty type person out there. He would tell me if it sucks. No hesitation. He doesn't care about my feelings, and I don't want him to. I want him to be honest with me, to give me things straight. And I very much value his input a lot. I value his input more than I value my input on my own story. But I have never shaped my story around feedback. I've always shaped my story around my ideas, around my framing of what goes on in my head, because in here is all 5 acts of Mystic Hills right here in my head. I'm the only person in the world who knows exactly how the story is going to go, exactly what my characters are going to progress into, exactly what the plot twists are, exactly what goes on here, there, and everywhere. The locations in the world, the different pantheons, the different things, this, that, and the not pantheons, the different kingdoms, the different peoples, the different races, how magic works, stuff like that. And there's a lot of different stuff like that. This is also a really good indication that this is going to work out very well. I might need to pull my mic further away from me because I'm very expressive with my hands, so I have free range of my hands again. Sitting that close to my desk to where I can knock everything over is really bad for someone who has expressive hands, like me. uh, it's not great, but we'll get there. But no, this setup is going to go great. I'm really happy with this setup. I'm really happy with where I'm changing things around. Then my next step is to clean my desk, because I have notebooks over here. I have electrical tape for some reason. I probably have electrical tape because of a wiring issue I had a while ago. My phone's right here. I have a phone holder right here that you can't see. It's off camera. It doesn't matter. I have a whole bunch of crap. I have pens everywhere. I have a pad of sticky notes here still. I still have the sticky note pad for the sticky note wall, which was this wall. I used to have a wall of sticky notes. That was a whole phase. That was around the time when I first started writing, was where I had a sticky note wall and was just plastering my ideas on the wall. And eventually I've obviously like phased that out. I don't have anything on this wall anymore. I have one sticky note up here. It's for something else. We'll get into that later eventually. But my process works, is what I'm saying. Like, I have an absolutely clear idea. Like, some of the things that I get going, I have to shuffle around a little bit. Like, for Act 1, I had to shuffle some things around so it fits better recently. So I have certain events happening after this section that I'm working on. The section I'm working on is like, this is some of the darkest that Act 1 is going to get. Act 1 is very light, I would say. It's a very light introduction into the dark themes that I'm going to be introducing into the later acts. Act 2 is going to be abysmally dark, like end of the world kind of dark. What the fuck is opening in my background? Why are there things opening in my background? Stop that. You are not welcome here. But stuff like that. I need to stop getting distracted. Fuck, it's been happening a lot lately, actually, where I just have these random applications opening in the background and then disappearing. I don't know what they are. I have no fucking clue what they are, and I don't know why they're doing it. They're fucking up everything in a lot of ways, and I'm not super happy about it, but I work with what I've got here, okay? I gotta work with what I got here. Also, it's hot as balls in here, mostly because of this comforter. Like, I'm cooking here. So, like, generally I should be wearing pants with this new camera angle and everything, but I don't know if that's going to be a mainstay. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Brain. I went off on a tangent about feedback and stuff, and then I started talking about my books again. But I'm gonna pull this back to Mystic Hill's origins. It was the ego hit that I desperately needed. It was the ego check I desperately needed, because it reminded me that, like, I need to stop aiming to be like the best of the best of the best, because I'm never going to be the best. I don't want to be the best. These are the things that I need to keep reminding myself of, because they keep me level. They keep me grounded. And my main saying whenever I'm talking to Nick about my books is, I don't want Mystic Hills to be great. I don't want Mystic Hills to be great. I just want it to be good. And I've poured countless hours into educating myself on research techniques, writing techniques. My brain is betraying me today. Uh, Writing techniques. There's tons of different things that I want to work on in my books. There's things that I'm trying to avoid. Um, there's things that I'm working on. There's things I'm working on including. Um, but at the same time, I don't want Mystic Hills to turn into this Sanderson-esque 300,000 word count book, because that's how you kill fantasy books. Um, Inflating your word count with flavor text doesn't make it good. I've seen a lot of people, whenever I've workshopped some snippets of my books around, they're like, "Oh, you need more words to make this good." And I'm like, having an inflated word count doesn't make something good. I don't know who told you that. I don't know where that came from. Just because you have 300,000 words doesn't make it good, especially in a fantasy work. You're not Tolkien. Stop trying to be Tolkien. It's never going to happen. Write what makes sense for the story, and write enough that it keeps the reader engaged, and not just to satisfy your egotistical need for having a 10-inch thick book. Okay, like let's not do this. But yeah, I've been getting more into BookTube on YouTube, where they're talking more about writing techniques and different things. There was a video that I watched not too long ago on world building tips and magic systems. What was it, by JBat? Um, Great channel. I'm gonna check out more of his stuff. He had a lot of good insights that helped. Um, but there's lots of stuff that helped me out, and it made me feel more comfortable working through my system and my world than it did before. Because at first I was very afraid that some of these areas may be too cliche, some of them may not make geographical sense. But then you also have to understand that these are fantasy worlds. They don't Realism is not the name of the game in certain aspects. When you're talking about magic and you're talking about superhuman feats of strength, skill, and supernatural elements, realism is not the name of the game. You can use realism when it works for the story. Like in Act 1, a lot of the more realistic aspects make sense at the start of Act 1, because you haven't really stepped into this world of monsters and magic just yet. And then everything goes even further in Act 2, and you're kind of fully ass deep in the more grandiose aspects of the world that I've created. So, like, I've already made it clear that that Earth where Acts 1, 2, and 3 take place on, are not an actual realistic depiction of Earth. It's my fantasy depiction of Earth. And there's other worlds outside of it that the story goes into, obviously. With Mystera, there's Balerion, there's all sorts of different things in the known dimensions as a whole that are more than just Earth. Now, most of the main story beats take place on Earth, and there's story reasons for that. It's plot relevant for that, but other than that, it doesn't really matter where they take place. What else did I want to talk about? But yeah, my original draft of this version of Mystic Hills is drastically different than the current version. Because as I've moved further away from the original Mystic Hills, it's become more of its own entity. And it's really expanded in ways not only that I never thought it would, but it's also expanded in ways that I never imagined that it could. Like it's expanded into aspects that I didn't really even think about before. Um, brain's not working. Uh, there's I don't know. There's lots of things that I want to do with it, and I really I don't feel bad for taking as much time as I have on it. Like I've been working on Mystic Hills, so you got to understand these last 3 drafts and this version that I'm working on right now. I've been working on seriously for 3 years almost. I've been doing this for almost 3 years. I've been really pouring a lot of my energy and all of my ideas out of my brain, and the more that I get out of my brain, the easier it'll be to fit the story together in ways that I want to add the more subtle parts, the different subtleties that I want to add, the different character dynamics that I want to add. Um, there are absolutely things that I've had to cut and rework. Like there's tons of things that I've cut and that I've reworked into a different aspect. I think no, I won't spoil it. There's I feel like the DNA of the original doesn't resonate with this version at all. um, because the thing about the original Mystic Hills is it was a lot of nothing. It was a lot of bullshit because we were a bunch of kids making a fake TV show that didn't really go anywhere. Season 3 was the most serious that we ever took it, or at least that I ever took it, because she never wanted to take it serious at all. Um, it was the most serious that I ever took it, and season 3 was kind of it was the bedrock, the foundation, my launching point into what it would eventually evolve into. And Mystic Hills Origins was an example of what I needed to avoid evolving it into, because it was very derivative. It was very much a it was more written as a spit in the face of the original, because I wanted it to be so good that nobody would remember that she helped make the originals. And that was kind of the idea at the time, and it was so dumb. I was so up my own ass about it. I don't know. It was a wild time. 2020 was a weird year. Not just uh not just through my complete emotional and psychological breakdown. Um, but no, I'm very happy with where Mystic Hills is taking me and the different directions that I want to take it. It's going to be very fun. Is the thing. I want it to be fun. I want it to have some depth. I want it to hit you in the feels in certain areas. Like when I want to explore characters. Oh god. I have to clean this microphone. I'm gonna add that to my list. When I'm cleaning my desk, I'm gonna add cleaning my microphone to that list. Um, when I want to explore more character depth, it'll hit you. That's what I want it to do. I want it to hit you. I don't want it to just be something that's like a I don't want it to be a passing thing. I want it to hit you and make you realize that these are moments that change the characters fundamentally for the rest of the series. Well, for the rest of the trilogy, because there's the main trilogy and then there's Acts 4 and 5, is kind of the way I have it set up. Because the trilogy is the red herring, Acts 4 and 5 is what the story is really about. Kind of. Acts 1 through 3 are to introduce you to the world, introduce you to the stakes, introduce you to the consequences of certain character actions, and introduce you to the cosmic scale of things, because it's on a much bigger scale than you think it is, because you won't realize it until you're in Act 3. Because in Act 3, that's when the whole story gets turned on its head, and it makes you realize you're the fool for missing the details that tell you what actually is going on. Because I'm trying to lay breadcrumbs in Acts 1, 2, and 3 that tell you more about what's actually going on rather than what's in front of you. And that's not some sort of you're stupid for not getting it kind of deal. And it's more along the lines of if you don't pay attention, you'll miss it kind of deal. And so that's why I kind of have things set up the way I do. I don't know. Act 1 will always I've always said this. I've said this a million times actually. Act 1 is the hardest to write. Not because I'm bad at writing it. It's just that it's the hardest to write because it's the hardest one to get right. Because Act 2 is much different. Act 2 is very different from Act 1, and I feel like that's something I'm very proud of, is that each act is very distinct from the next, and that's why they're separated that way. It justifies not only the separation of acts, but also allows me to explore different types of themes throughout the acts. Because Act 1 is sort of the light introduction. It's sort of the grace period. It's your grace period into getting used to this world and understanding that, yeah, some dark things happen in it, and there's these characters, these things happen to them, these things are going to happen to them, this is how their characters changed because of it. And Act 2 will lead, and then Act 2 will lead into the very chaotic nature of, it's basically chaos. Like, everything devolves into chaos, because there's the investigation of, there's the mistrust that's building between the other characters and Adrian and the secret of the last great mystic war. And then there's the revelations of that because Hunter opened his mouth. And then after the events of the last great mystic war are revealed, their view of Adrian changes, and their trust is shaken in him because he held such an important secret from them. And then there's the investigation of citizens from Mystic Hills going missing. And then there's the ritual to revive Aeonis, and then there's the death smack into my microphone. There's the death of a character, and then there's Aeonis' resurrection, and then there's the battle for Mystic Hills. And then the battle for Mystic Hills takes place. It completely kind of shatters everything. It's this big climactic moment that sort of brings themes together that were introduced at the start of the act, but it's all happening in such quick succession that it's very fast paced. Um, and then Act 3 is the aftermath. It is consequences, and it's very somber, and it's very slow to build up. And then it's the rebuilding of Mystic Hills after they defeat Aeonis and his army. There's the reflection of the characters over the death of the certain character who was killed, certain characters who were killed, I should say. And the dynamics are different. And then there's reconciliation when they go to Mystera and they travel together, and there's this slow, steady reconciliation as they band together on this basically suicidal mission that they tagged along with Adrian for because they wouldn't take no for an answer. And then there's the trip through the Dwarven tunnels. There's the Nexus, and then there's Castrum Mythic, and then there's the big reveal at the end of Act 3. And then it goes into Act 4, which is, I would say, it tackles more into I would say Act 4 is another I don't know how I would describe Act 4 because it's a prequel. And that's always hard to talk about. Act 4 is a prequel to everything that came before. And it basically blows the lid off of everything and gives context to what happened before and why Adrian is the way he is. And what the actual difference between Adrianus and Adrius is, because they are fundamentally two different characters. They're the same person, but they're fundamentally different characters because of the different experiences and different things that they went through. And it's something that's explored in Act 2, but culminates in Act 3, and is fully explored in Act 4. And it's very much... yeah. And there's tons of stuff in Act 4 that I want to do. The main bulk of it is, like, the introduction of Act 4 is covering the Great Mystic Civil War, which was Adrianus battling against Arcturus for the throne. And the end of that war culminates in Adrianus defeating Arcturus, but banishing himself because he is responsible for who Arcturus has become. And so he basically abandons Mystera for his own self-exile, self-imposed exile to Earth for 2,000 years. The 2,000 years that happens. And it follows into, culminating into his return to Mystera. It falls in line with his return to... One day I'll be able to speak fluently. His return to Mystera coincides with his return to accept the consequences of his choices. And so he's meeting those consequences of his choices head on instead of running away from them this time. Because he ran away from them because of the overwhelming guilt and remorse that he felt for what he did to his own brother. And so Act 4 culminates in a final battle between the brothers where Adrianus defeats Arcturus once and for all. Ugh. which also was referenced in Act 2. It was explained a tiny bit in Act 3, and it was fully explained in Act 4 because you're witnessing the events. And then after the defeat and death of Arcturus, Adrianus takes his rightful place as the Mystic King. And then you see his transition from Adrianus into Adrius, because the event that caused that to happen, his change in perspective, his change in mentality, happened when Liliana was killed, because she's not actually dead. It was just a catalyst that led Aeonus to perceive that she was dead and swear revenge against Adrius, make a deal with Vethix, become a demon, and then initiate the last great mystic war as Balarion's general. And you see all these pieces falling into place, and you see the importance of these characters falling into place. And Act 5 is I can sum Act 5 up in one word, which is eucatastrophe. And eucatastrophe was coined, it's a term coined by Tolkien. Eucatastrophe is a literary device coined by Tolkien that describes a sudden, unexpected, and joyous turn of events in a story that transforms a seemingly inevitable tragic outcome into a fortunate resolution. My bad. Words. A sudden and favorable resolution of events in a story, or a happy ending. Now, the difference between a eucatastrophe and a fairy tale ending is the fairy tale ending, you know it's coming. Like, it's very obvious in fairy tales that the good guys are going to win and the bad guys are going to lose, and everything is going to be happy, everyone's going to be safe, everyone's going to be great. Now, the reason why a eucatastrophe works and a fairy tale ending is derivative, boring, and cliche, I should say, is that the inevitable victory of the villain in a fairy tale never feels inevitable. In fact, it's the inverse. It feels inevitable that the hero is going to win rather than the villain. So the way Act 5 is structured is to show that Balerion is there in overwhelming force. The entire realm is bleeding into the known dimensions, devouring everything. And there is nothing anybody can do about it. There is nothing that anyone can do about it. There's no preventing it. All there is left to do is take a final stand or die. And essentially, Adrius takes it upon himself to make this final stand against his parents. Well, against his parent. I don't want to spoil anything yet. And it's this battle. Most of Act 5 is the battle between Adrius and Vethix against father and son. And it's this dynamic that hasn't been explored before, because Adrius, or as Adrianus or any other form that he's taken, has always been the very patriarchal figure, the very fatherly figure, who was the mentor, the teacher, the father figure for all the other characters. And now we're seeing a different type of dynamic between him and his own father, where Vethix is all that's left of the god of the sun, Teriol, who is his father. And Vethix is the Lord of Balerion. He rules Balerion. He leads its demonic armies and is leading the charge into devouring the entirety of the known dimensions to complete his war against the gods and have his revenge. And obviously, Adrius is opposed to that because there's no point in destroying the entirety of the known dimensions over the loss of one child, which is essentially the catalyst for why Balerion exists. It's why Vethix was exiled. It's why Teriol was exiled. It's why Noctunus was murdered. It was all over the death of a child. And who that child is, I won't spoil because it's all very much laid out on the table. And it's this culmination of themes and culmination of character that I'm really looking forward to getting into. There's tons of things that I can do with it. There's tons of things that I can tweak here and there to make it a little better. I don't want to make it worse, obviously. No one wants to make anything bad. Well, I mean, unless you're slop. If you're making slop, you're just going to be making everything bad. Uh, I don't know. There's just so much. There's so much that I want to do with Mystic Hills. I'm so excited to get more into it. I'm so excited. I still have plenty of time to make my goal because I said that I wanted to get my entirety of Act 1 finished and polished by April. And I'm still on track for that. And I'm really excited to get into it. I'm really excited to get more of it done. Because it's my passion. Like, I will not be able to rest until it's done. Even if it's like, I don't care if it sells well. I don't care if it like, I want it to reach a bunch of people, but I don't really care about selling it for so much. Like, money is not the goal. Money should never be the goal. Making money to continue your passion is fine, but if that's your only goal, if making the money to spend the money is your only goal, then there's no point in making the money at all when you can still pursue your passion without it. I've been able to do this without the money for 3 fucking years. I don't need the money to do this. Like, it would be cool. It'd be cool if I made money off of it, but it's not my goal. I'm making it for the sake of it being made because I feel I'm the only one with the ability to make it at this juncture. Like, if I could have passed on this curse of being inundated with Mystic Hills lore for my entire adulthood, if I could pass this off to somebody else, I probably would have a long time ago and moved on with my life, but I haven't. And I'm not super keen on moving on anytime soon. I'm probably going to be well into my 30s before I'm even done with this series. Like, I'm 27. I'm going to be turning 28 by the time I finish Act 1. And if I keep going along this pattern, I'm probably going to be well into my 30s before I'm done with Act 5. But when I'm finished with it, I'll be able to look back on it and say, I did this. This was my passion. This was the culmination of my talent, my skill, all of the things that I've learned, all the things that I know, distilled down into one thing. And it'll... I'm hoping it will be great. Someone texted me. And it's spam. I can tell it's spam because it's not my name. that they put in the text. So I don't know. I feel like I have this feeling. I've been very much more comfortable and better about where I am right now in my life because I feel like I belong right here in this moment. This is where I belong. I feel like I belong here, making this effort, making these changes, trying to be better, not only as a writer, but as a person moving forward and into the rest of my life. Because I don't know. Um, it's just where I'm at in my life, and I feel like I'm very comfortable with that. I'm very okay with that, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like I would not be anywhere. I would rather be here. I would rather be here than anywhere else. Those are the words I'm looking for. Good God, oh, my own brain exhausts me sometimes. See, this is why I don't do this anymore. This is why I don't do big vlogs like this anymore, where I talk shit, where I talk about shit. This is why I don't do it anymore. It's because my brain doesn't work. You would think 9 years of making content and talking to a camera would make you be able to speak well enough to be able to speak for hours on end. It doesn't. Like, I've been making these full game videos for a while, and it's towards the end that you see that I just kind of peter out and I talk a hell of a lot less because I'm just exhausted. Like, I've exhausted myself. I used to be able to do this all day long. I don't know. There's a lot of times where I look back and I wish I could recapture that 2016 to 2019 energy that I used to have, where I was able to do this every single day, multiple times a day, for hours and hours on end. I never want to shut up. I never want to stop. I miss that kind of energy, but at the same time, I have to understand that I've changed, especially over the last 5 years. I've just changed fundamentally. I'm not that same kid anymore. It's very much different now than it used to be. And that's not a bad thing, but it's not a great thing either. If that makes sense. It's not bad. Like I said, I'd rather be nowhere else but here. The things that I'm going through for a reason. Like, I'm going to be making a lot of major changes by the time this year is over. I'm going to have a lot of things done by the time this year is over. Like, you got to understand, I got 3 months till the end of this year. I'm going to have a lot of stuff done by Christmas. um and I made a post about it, but my next projects are going to be the Hollow Knight games, because I have Hollow Knight and Silksong to play. I've touched Hollow Knight a little bit, but this will be like my first full game playthrough of Hollow Knight and Silksong. Silksong is obvious because it just came out like 5 days ago. Uh, and it was only $20. Like, Silksong was $20, which is fucking insane. I love it. I love that they did that. But anyway, I'm gonna stop yapping. I'm probably gonna get to chopping down this video. Maybe, who knows? Jimothy, you can come back. there's Jimothy. Hello, Jimothy. Uh, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye! I don't know what else to say. I got nothing left.